a winner of so many awards and such a successful business person, you must have received lots of advice along the way. Could you give me an example of some bad advice that you've been given and you hear given to lots of other people?
The worst advice I ever got was that PR was just for people with enormous egos. So this is one of the most important lessons I think for entrepreneurs, is be really careful about who you listen to, because there's an awful lot of people out there who want to give really good advice, and sometimes we use the wrong filters and we're listening to the wrong kind of people. So I was told that PR was just an ego thing, and that only people that were lacking in substance went for sort of PR, whereas actually I believe that if you don't put your head above the parapet, and that's effectively what PR does, then you'll be like an awful lot of other companies that nobody knows anything about.
Sure.
So that was a really bad bit of advice that I shouldn't have listened to earlier on. I listen now, so I've got a PR company now, but earlier on I didn't listen to it.
Excellent. And conversely, you must have had good advice that along the way that you would give to other people.
Yeah, I think we are all born with 2 ears and 1 mouth, and I believe that you should listen in that kind of proportion. So I've listened to a huge amount of it, but I do apply my own filters, and that's incredibly important. I think people make mistakes when they listen to advice and they don't apply their own filters for their businesses. The best advice that I've had would have been, and this is really boring by the way, but it would have been to actually write down the processes of everything that you do in your business as you happen and have them. Because, again, when we franchised our business and all the rest of it, we had to create this enormous kind of manual, and although we had some loose, practice documents written around, the comprehensive process notes that we've had have been a very valuable bit of not only how to run a Diamond Logistics depot, but also our IP. So writing everything down, I think, is really important.
What advice would you give your 15-year-old self, your 20-year-old self, your 25-year-old self?
15, 20 and 25. Oh, blimey. The advice I give to my 25-year-old self would be respect yourself. So I was a bit of a wild child. And I think I could have had a little bit more self-respect. That would have been cool. But then actually the parting that I got up to at that point in time led me to where I am today. And I always say that if you're really happy where you are today, then all the different paths that you've taken have got you there. Would it have made any difference? To my 20-year-old self, my advice would be, God, I was so brave at 20. My advice would be, you'll make it, because if I'd known that at 20, that would have saved me probably the first 20 years of thinking, oh my God, am I always going to be able to pay the wages or the bills or whatever, because I started my business at 20, right? And at 25, don't get married for the second or third time, because that will cost you a fortune. Yeah, that's about it. Well, I hope that what I'm doing at the moment continues. I hope being an empathetic and love-based kind of person, that means that I'll always have a business and a life that I'm really proud of. I hope that I'm surrounded by grandchildren. That would be a really amazing thing. Currently speaking, it doesn't look that likely, but so that would be a really amazing thing. And what would I like to tell my 45-year-old self? That it's okay to go grey now. Stop spending so much money on Botox.
Getting in the zone yourself.
The zone's a myth, right? So I genuinely believe it's absolute nonsense. It's just routine. So whenever you look at great sportsmen, the thing that leads to the amazing result that they have on the day that they race is not that 10 seconds of time if they're in 100 metres. It is the 3 years worth of training that they've done before that point. And that is the setting the alarm, getting up at 5, working your plan, following your training, eating right, focusing on the goal, etc., etc. It's all of that stuff. It's all that boring stuff. So if you ever get that beautiful meeting of peak physical health and feeling amazing and great motivation and all the rest of it, then you get that zone. But the reality is, it's all the boring routine and practice and following the plan that is what makes people really great. So I think the zone is potentially a myth, and that actually most people are not as successful as they should be in business because they don't like the sheer boredom of doing stuff that they have to every day. I think the reality is, and this is why most people stumble before they reach magnificent success is that most people just don't like doing the hard work that isn't exciting, that people don't write books about, because in the end it's really tedious, and the reality is that most success is really boring. So, you know, it's the grim reality of it, really.
Okay, moving on from that, with regards to doing all the boring Monday stuff in the background, how do you structure your day so that you know that you're making progress all the time? Because I find a lot of the time work gets in the way. I want to get to a certain point but don't, because work gets in the way.
So do you have a plan of where you're going? Do you have a destination?
I do. Yes, I do, yes.
Okay, so that's great. So you absolutely know where you're going.
Yeah.
So therefore you are, again, I presented in front of 25 business people last week, and only one person out of the 25 actually had a business plan. I find that absolutely staggering. So I have good days, I have bad, I have mornings like this morning whereby I got up at like 2:45, and I should have probably done a good couple of hours worth of work, but instead I did the sort of interior design of my new house or whatever, because I'm allowed to do that girly stuff too. But the reality is that when I get into work, I know what I've got to do, because I'm working to a 5-year plan of where it is that I'm heading. But then we have like a strategic plan for the business this year, and we've got objectives and key results, you know, again, from everything from corporate and social responsibility to accounting targets to key performance indicators in terms of our sales, etc., and all the projects that I've got on my board and all the things that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis are sort of encompassed within that kind of plan. And then I've got your list of daily tasks that then sort of does the micromanagement of that. And that's how it kind of works. So it literally starts from my big 5-year goal of where I'm going, to our annual strategic plan, to what my quarterly objectives and key results are, to my monthly planner of stuff, to my daily list of things to do. Okay. So that's quite comprehensive planning, really.
One of the issues that I find, which I'm sure other business owners have as well, I've got a to-do list that I think, I'm definitely getting this done today. I get to 5 o'clock and I've not even started it.
Yeah.
And then it rolls on to the next day, and then the next day, and then it becomes this big beast, and I think, what do I do? And then I just don't do any of it. Have you got sort of a strategy on how you do that, or do you just make sure it's done? You just don't stop? Because I like to.
No, I think anybody who says that they get it all done is just completely lying. There's a couple of reasons why people mostly don't manage their to-do list very well. One of them is that we put too much on them. So I find it far better if you just put 3 key things that you need to achieve in a day and actually manage that you do them, because then you actually get a sense of accomplishment and it doesn't feel like it's really overwhelming. The other thing is that in your to-do list, if you're a bit like me, because I've got a funny feeling you've got a proper detail head as well, haven't you? Yeah. You're a proper I dot a T crosser and all the rest of it. Right, we can't switch that off. I'd like to say it's because we're like Steve Jobs, but it's not. It's because that man was magnificent. But I am a little bit kind of detail sort of orientated. So I'll have like 30, 40, 50 things on my to-do list, but you've got to go through it and understand which ones that you can get rid of. So there's got to be a delegate list. Which ones really aren't that important because time isn't infinite, and what are the core ones that again are going to directly impact on your strategic plan. So I want my team to have more sense of unity, so we want to have communal lunch times, so we need to put lino in a kitchen area that was carpeted. So I went down there and there's like some sticky glue substance on the floor and all the rest of it. So I wanted to brief the cleaners. Now that's a bloody stupid thing for me to do. I can't afford to be that kind of micromanaging. Yeah. So that goes on my list of to-do things, but I delegate it to Charlotte, who manages the business for me. So yes, you can note all these things and all these details, particularly if you're fascinated by your business, but delegate, delete and do. Delegate, delete and do. There you go, I've just come up with it in 3 words. Delegate,
with regards
delete,
to the delegate, do you then follow up to make sure it's done, or...?
Yeah, you should do, but I'm a really bad manager of people, so I just have really good people that I know that they're going to do it. But also give them a time frame that they need to achieve that in. Okay. So I find, again, the weekly review of meetings is a really good way of doing this. So if you have a project list, so we have a project list with all the people that I delegate stuff to, so they write everything down, because it can be quite voluminous, so they write everything down on that project list, and then we just update it with a status report once a week when we have our meeting to download that stuff
too. This is just a central spreadsheet.
Yeah, Excel spreadsheet, literally. I'm really happy to share that as a resource if you guys want to have a look at it.
Yeah, I'd like to.
And equally, really happy to share with people in terms of what we use for our objective and key results and kind of strategy docs and things that really set out what Diamond does as well. The one thing I would say as well, I have so much stuff going on in my head, and Diamond is not lacking for lack of information. One of the greatest disciplines I've learnt in the last 5 years particularly is to keep stuff super simple. So you literally get down to the minimum amount of documents that the business can run on, rather than having masses amount of information everywhere.
So, after writing your first 2 books, your third book, Manicured Fist, is due out later this year and is a handbook for women in business. In what ways do you think it'll help women like yourself in business?
I don't think it's going to help women like myself because we're out there doing it now.
Right.
I'm hoping that what it's going to do is to talk to people about how we're raising our daughters and talk to people about the constraints they're imposing on themselves and talk to people about empowering themselves to ask for the things that they need, encourage people to look at self-employment and to really say that in this country particularly that the gender challenge is almost a construction of our own. I think of all the women that I interviewed for it, fellow women in business such as myself, and the big thing that all of us had is that there was not one person in any of our upbringings that thought we couldn't do it. And I think that's the key bit. I think success for women in business and their careers is absolutely out there, should they choose to have it. But it starts with the way we bring up our daughters. I wasn't doing hair on Barbie. I was reading books. And I think that's pretty much the same for any people who've got the Manicured Fist. By the way, thank you to Hilary Devey for that. But I saw her being interviewed in a interview once, and she was saying that the glass ceiling doesn't care whether it's a hairy lorry driver's arm that smashes through it or a manicured fist. And I kind of like that.
Yeah. I mean, your answer's pretty much answered the next question about you've not faced discrimination. Of
course I've faced discrimination. I've had people pat my arse and wearing leather jumpers, not being able to have a conversation with me because I have substantial bosoms and have been spoken to like I'm a personal assistant rather than a CEO for years.
But have you ignored that though and not let it affect you?
It's just funny, isn't it? Of course you've got to ignore it. I've had varying degrees of, I started my business in the 90s. The sexism was incredible. But we have moved on exponentially since then, and there is no way that my daughter and her generation are facing the same kind of discrimination now. I think we have a sea of political correctness in most places, and that's a welcome change, by the way. I mean, there's still room to go, but I absolutely face discrimination. But it's just part of the journey.
Yeah,
I just think the people that were being discriminatory were not worth
no, that's right.
Raising an eyebrow to when I could raise my eyebrows.
Yeah. Okay, so with Diamond Logistics and yourself having a lot of awards to your name, how do you feel in yourself having built your empire from scratch?
Empire. Oh, I really like that word, but I don't think it's very much of an empire. How do I feel about having built it myself? Really proud now, actually. Really proud of my team and all that sail on the good ship Diamond Logistics. Pretty brave of the 20-year-old me who started Diamond in 1992. She was very brave. And I can't wait to see where it goes. I've got a few years left on this journey, and I'm still only a young lady. I'm only 46, so I'm in a really good place, really enjoying it, really loving my work, really loving the business, very proud of what we maintain in terms of our culture and our values. That's really important to me, and very proud of the business model that we've got, which is very partnership led, and it feels that the zeitgeist for Diamond is like now. So
what, with regards to deciding on the franchise model, what thought process did you go through a few years back to scale up? Because I'm thinking that myself, I'm sure there's a lot of other small businesses thinking on that route. What was your sort of deciding factors to choose that route to scale up?
2 main bits. I believe in skin in the game. if you want quality of service delivery, I think if people share ownership,
Right.
then they have skin in the game, and they will be more motivated to deliver excellence of service. And I know that our franchises around the UK really care about their businesses because they've got ownership of that, and that's that shared success principle,
Sure.
which is one of our founding principles. And the other thing, quite frankly, was the speed of which we could establish the network and the self-capitalisation of it. So their investment in terms of our franchise fee and setting up their own depots means that we've got a relatively low capitalisation level. So we've got the sort of asset-based, fast growth platform, tech platform that is scaled by our network partners, and so that's a really big benefit.
So the revenue streams are from a percentage of the revenues from, there's no sort of ownership of the land that they're...
No, so not yet, I'm not doing a McDonald's,
Right,
although I'd really like to, so if anyone...
I watched the film actually.
Oh, the founder's blinding,
I watched
isn't
that on
it?
the plane, come back from holiday. So.
See, I really liked it, it's quite funny, I've got quite a few entrepreneurial mates, half of them, we're pretty divided, 50-50, half think it's a tough film, half think it's great, I think it's great. And one of the first books I read when I was getting involved in franchising was Grinding It Out by Ray Kroc. It was really fascinating. But for those of you who don't know, McDonald's made most of its money not on the franchise fees, it was that they owned the property that the McDonald's franchises were established on, but we're yet to buy up industrial estates around the UK yet. But you never know, watch the space. But no, it's ours is very much about recruit network partners recruit customers in their area, and then they're facilitated via the Diamond Logistics platform.
Excellent. I also read, you like to read yourself.
Love a book.
You read a lot. Do you use that to sort of help give you motivation, or is it there just for a way for you to relax or to expand your mind, or is it a mixture of all of that?
Depends what I'm reading. I've got a terrible habit currently, speaking of this guy called, I think it's Ben Aronovich, that does these kind of mystical, like London police stories. That's my wind down at the moment. But actually, I'd say primarily it's business books that I read, and that's because I don't have a business degree. I'm self-taught, but I've read thousands of books, and I'm a proper business geek. And I'm also fascinated by business and fascinated by other businesses. And business changes. You know, the reality is that the classic business models of 20 years ago don't exist. And I need to be at the forefront of all of that. So if you look at my reading at the moment, quite a lot of it's about data, platforms, AI, etc., etc. So robotics. So I'm reading a lot about that kind of stuff. But I genuinely find it fascinating.
Do you find when you read things that maybe conflict with views that you've got, you then take another viewpoint? Or because I sometimes, where I read lots of different books, a lot of them say the same but in a slightly different way, and then I think there's not enough hours in the day to incorporate everything that I've learned. I think, well, that might work, but I don't know how do you sort of cut out what you think will work and what.
As you say, there's often a very big thread of similarity through a majority of books. I would suggest that thread is the good advice, because it's consistent regardless of who's advising it. And I think there's probably 10 commandments in business that people can follow and end up with a good outcome. But in terms of what we apply and what we don't apply, it goes back to the plan.